So, what could a pasta monster, a Jedi Knight, and a sacred motorcycle possibly have in common? Well, it turns out they're all at the very heart of some pretty unconventional belief systems. Today, we're going to take a look at how faith, satire, and culture can mix together in some really surprising ways.
So let's just dive right in, shall we? We're going to explore the incredible variety of human belief. Everything from movements that were born straight out of modern pop culture to some really ancient traditions that are finding a whole new life today.
All right, first up, let's start with beliefs that have sprung directly from the world we live in right now. Systems that came from protest, from fandom, and from pop culture itself. Okay, these two are just perfect examples. On one side, you've got pastafarianism, which is basically a satirical protest against religious dogma. And then on the other side, you have Jediism, a spiritual path that was literally inspired by an epic film series. Now, both have managed to attract these huge followings, which, it makes you wonder, can a joke and a movie actually create a real sense of community and meaning for people?
So pastafarianism, also known as the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, really did start as a satirical protest. The founder, a guy named Bobby Henderson, basically said, hey, what if a supernatural creator made of spaghetti and meatballs created everything? But what started as a joke, well, it's actually evolved into a global movement. We're talking millions of followers who will proudly wear colanders on their heads as religious headwear.
And if you're thinking this is just some tiny niche fandom, you've got to think again. I mean, look at this. In the 2011 UK census, a staggering 170,000 people actually wrote down their religion as Jedi. That's a pretty powerful example of how a fictional story can go way beyond just entertainment and become a real source of spiritual identity for so many.
And the followers of Jediism take it very seriously. They've set up formal groups like the Temple of the Jedi Order. They argue that their belief in the Force is a totally legitimate spiritual path, and it's completely separate from the people who made the movies. But they have faced some big legal hurdles. The UK Charity Commission, for instance, has refused to give it official status as a religion.
Okay, so from modern pop culture, let's switch gears and turn to beliefs that are centered on something a bit more tangible. In one case, a miraculous object, and in another, a living, breathing person.
In Rajasthan, India, there is a temple that draws tons of people from all over. But the thing they worship, it's not a traditional god or goddess. No, it's a 350cc Royal Enfield bullet motorcycle, and it has a truly wild story.
Right, so the story is really what gives this bike its power. After its owner had a fatal accident back in 1988, the police took the motorcycle. But then it just mysteriously reappeared at the crash site. This kept happening over and over again, even after it was sold and moved 400 kilometers away. So for the local people, this was a clear sign. They built the Bullet Baba Temple because they believe the bike is a divine protector for anyone who travels. Now, let's travel to a totally different part of Asia, over to Nepal. Here, divinity isn't found in some inanimate object. Instead, it's actually embodied by a living child who's known as the Kumari. The Kumari tradition, it gives us a completely different way of looking at divinity. So what happens is a young girl is chosen by priests to become a living goddess, the actual human incarnation of the deity Teleju. She moves into a palace, she's worshipped by thousands of people, but her divine status is temporary. It only lasts until she reaches puberty, and then she just goes back to living a normal life.
Okay, next up, we're going to explore a belief system that has really ancient roots, but is seeing this explosive growth today, especially across the Americas.
I mean, the scale of this movement is just staggering. With an estimated 10 million or even more followers, the worship of Santa Muerte, which translates to Saint Death, has become one of the fastest growing new belief systems in the entire world.
So who or what is Santa Muerte? Well, she's what's called a syncretic figure, a female folk saint who literally represents death itself. Her worship is this really powerful mix of pre-Hispanic Aztec beliefs, specifically the goddess of death, Mictecacasihuatl, and then different elements of folk Catholicism.
Now, even though she's been condemned by the Catholic Church as satanic, Santa Muerte's popularity just keeps soaring, especially with people who feel like they're outside the mainstream. For her followers, worshiping the personification of death isn't about being scared. It's about getting rid of that fear. It's about seeking protection and miracles from a powerful figure who doesn't judge.
All right, our final example is one you've probably heard of, but its origins might actually surprise you. We're going to look at how a self-help therapy system grew into one of the world's most recognized and controversial religions.
So this chart shows a pretty remarkable evolution. Back in the 1950s, L. Ron Hubbard introduced Dianetics,
and it was framed as a totally secular self-help therapy. Then, just 2 years later, he took those same ideas and reframed them into a religious system, creating Scientology and concepts like spiritual oddity.
And this evolution, well, it wasn't exactly a smooth ride. Even in its earliest days as Dianetics, the foundation was facing some really serious legal challenges. This quote here highlights a case from 1951 where it was accused of teaching medicine without a license, which kind of foreshadowed the decades of controversy that would follow. So, wow, we've journeyed from satirical pasta monsters and Jedi from the movies to secret motorcycles and a religion that started as a therapy. All of these incredibly diverse examples really bring us to a pretty fundamental question about what belief itself even means.
You know, what